Hello and welcome. Well, there's no doubt that as new parents, there can be challenges in figuring out the physical and emotional intimacy after a baby is born. And let's face it, it's a major life shift that very few people talk honestly about. And what we find that this dynamic isn't so much about the physical intimacy at all. It's more commonly a conversation about reestablishing the emotional connection with your partner postpartum and shifting the overall dynamics in your relationship. Now, to help bring this topic to light, we welcome our special guest, Beck Thompson, a #1 international best-selling author and relationship coach. Now, Beck has 10 years experience in counseling, social work, and life coaching, and is a new mum with a baby to an 8-month-old. How are you doing, Beck? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is a very interesting topic to be talking about. And as I just mentioned, it is something that isn't spoken about much in the media. So we're really excited to be bringing it to light. And as I just mentioned, you're very aware both professionally and personally how a relationship can be impacted by childbirth itself, of course, having a small baby. And, throughout your career and now your life experience, I'd love to know, what you've found are the biggest struggles generally that couples face in reestablishing the intimate connection together.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I don't think I fully understood it until I had a baby. And there's so many conversations that I had with my husband after having Flynn that I wished we'd had prior to having, but you just, you don't know what you don't know. So,
Yeah.
For us, I think the biggest struggle was that you're just, after you have a baby, and particularly in that newborn phase, you are so exhausted. Like I've never had experienced an exhaustion like that. Like you just spent however long in labor and you're exhausted from that. And then you bring this tiny human home that neither of you have any idea what to do with. And then you've got your relationship. And so you're tired, and I think you go back to those old dynamics that you used to have in a relationship. I know we found that we were fighting more, we were definitely bickering more. There was, the times where we just weren't as connected as we were. And the skills that we'd learned prior, it really took it took effort to bring those back. So we kind of had to just ride the wave of how it is when you have a newborn and know that, you'll come through the other side.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as you just said, parents with a newborn often describe the first 12 months like with a foggy brain syndrome and that they're rarely present with their partner in the way that they were prior to the birth. So, why do you think there's so much complexity overall wrapped up in intimacy after childbirth?
Oh, look, so there's so many reasons. I think like physically your body undergoes such a massive change, and along with that, emotionally you've just birthed a human and
And created the human too.
yeah, and it's like in the way that you birth the child, you also birth yourself as a mother. So you become like, it changes you, and
Of
in a
course.
beautiful way. And you've also got the dynamic of you had just the two of you together, and now you've got a third one there, and this third one requires all your attention, and both of your attention. Like both of you, like me and my husband chatted the other day, we're like, is it okay if Flynn comes first now for a while? And we're like,
Yeah.
because for both of us, that's what happens. He actually just comes first because that is the part of the complexity. We really had to navigate, how do we reestablish this dynamic change of what two of us to now three of us, and how do we have time where it's just two of us? So it's really important, like when we put him to bed, that we have time connecting again together, because we know that he's safe, he's asleep, everything's good. But it's just such a, and then I suppose you've got the complexity is if you weren't that great at communicating prior to having a baby, then you don't have the energy really to learn new skills. So you're just trying to focus on what you've already got in your toolbox to work with.
And that being said, do you think that postpartum intimacy has equal parts in physical and emotional pressures? And if so, like how then?
Yeah, totally. I mean, physically, because you've just however you've given birth, you've got trauma there from that. You have to know how your body works again. You have to establish that. Is it different for both parties? I'm sure physically it feels differently for both of you. And emotionally, because you're just on I suppose you've got different things happening in your head, and different worries, different concerns, different feelings, different emotions. So all of that stuff is all happening. And like being a woman, I'm sure you know that we're just thinking of a million things at a time, you know. So, you know, it's sometimes then to switch off that brain of like, oh no, I'm just here with my partner. Oh, but is the baby okay now? You know, I had that in my head before, and I need to do grocery shopping, and now I need to, you know, meet my friend tomorrow. And, you know, so all of that stuff is still happening in our brain.
Well, postpartum, you know, there's hormonal changes, of course, that affect libido and intimate comfort overall, as you were just saying. You know, overall, do you think that this could just be one of nature's ways of helping us space out pregnancies at all?
Maybe. Someone said to me once, they were like, I said, why didn't you tell me about the labor? They're like, well, if I told you, you wouldn't have another one. You know, so maybe it's our way of, although some people get pregnant straight away, so I don't know.
I guess, you know, on a serious note, you know, women's bodies do need to heal and a chance to heal, like you just said. And it's extremely common for mothers to need time to regain the genuine interest in being intimate again. And every pregnancy and birth is different, of course. But in your experience, I mean, how long have you found it's common for women to take? How long is it common for women to take time to become interested again?
Yeah. Oh God, that's kind of a question. Like, how long is a piece of string?
Of course,
because it really depends on the person. I mean, some people it takes up to a year, and like I just say to people, whatever you're comfortable with. If you have a beautiful, supportive partner, your relationship is not going to break if you haven't had sex in a certain amount of time. You know, as long as you're communicating with each other about what's happening. Like, I have to tell my partner all the time, oh, this is too intimate. You know, my babies, I'm breastfeeding. Stop touching my boobs. You know, because right now they're taken up by him, and so they're not yours right now.
Not your area.
Don't touch.
Oh, that's hilarious. Now, we published your article, and the title is Top 10 Tips to Getting Your Spark Back in Your Relationship After Childbirth. Now, for someone who hasn't read the article yet, can you please tell us what it's about and tell us what inspired you to write it?
Yeah. So I suppose first of all, I got inspired to write it because it was something that we found along our journey of becoming parents. You know, even 8 months, it's interesting. It's like you blink and they're 8 months old. You're like, where on earth did the 8 months go? And we had to, I'm lucky that that both of us have done a lot of personal development together, and that, you know, this is my job. So I need to work on my relationship to be good at my job. So we're lucky in the way that we had those skills. But even I guess because I found it challenging, I thought, what do other people are going to find this challenging as well. So if there's any way that I can give some sort of insight into what we did that worked and what I think people can do professionally that worked. So in the article, I just go through 10 tips like self-love, that to acknowledge that this takes time and that that's okay, to have conversations about it, and, you know, as a woman, to get back into your body and know that to learn to love your body again, because it's changed. And how can you know, a lot of women don't love their body pre-childbirth. I loved my body when I was pregnant. I thought it was the most, I can't wait to get pregnant again. I think it's the most magnificent thing. So just so I go through sort of tips that you can implement into your life, and there's no order of them. You know, if you do one of those tips, if you do all of them, if you do 3 of them, like, it doesn't matter. I suppose have a read of it and have a look at what tips you think would work for your relationship, and I suppose implement what you can and when you can.
And of those 10 tips, do you want to maybe pick out your top 3 favorite ones maybe?
Yeah, I think probably my first favorite one would be to acknowledge that it takes time, because I think that that's really important. And there's no timeline on it. I think, you know, we have enough pressure in the world, particularly as women, to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to look a certain way. And there's, particularly with social media and media in general, you know, celebrities bounce back and you're like, whoa, they got their body back. And that's what is the important headline. Like, you're raising a human. That should be what the important headline is. And you're learning how to get yourself back. So, you know, no pressure on yourself. Take the pressure off yourself. It takes as much time as it needs to take. I think that the probably scheduling in that time to chat to your partner so that you've got, and I get that it's difficult when you've got a baby, but pull on those supports that you have around you. Like, who do you have that could watch the baby while you, had a chat every week? Or, once baby's in bed, can you have a chat then? Like, just because we take so much time to chat about, have you got the groceries? Did you pick Mary up from swimming? Did you, but we forget to take time to sit down and see how emotionally we're going in the relationship. So I think that's really important. And I think the last one would be to pull towards your partner rather than away from your partner. And that could look like, if they're making a gesture of a physical touch in some way, even if you're not comfortable with it, let them know that that's something you're not comfortable with. And then you can, sorry, can you hear
That's
crying
okay.
in the background? The choice of Yeah, so I think that, what often happens in relationships is that you have someone in a relationship will make a gesture towards someone and then they'll say, well, I don't like it. And then the other person assumes that they're not going to like it forevermore. Whereas perhaps at that point you didn't want to be touched because, you're just not feeling okay, or you've just, breastfed your baby, or something's happened that you don't want. So, I mean, pulling towards your partner just means that you're, instead of pushing them away, you're connecting with them in some way. So just making the time to be able to connect with them, and when they put a bid for attention towards you, that you notice it and go towards them rather than pull away from them. And when we're tired and overwhelmed and stuff, it's easier to pull away often than it is to go towards. But it will strengthen that connection.
And finishing up on the article, we'll have the link, of course, in the show notes. And there's wonderful. There's 10 tips in total, and thank you for sharing those 3. But
That's
we'll
right.
definitely have a link through to that in the show notes for everyone to have a good read of afterwards. But what I wanted to ask you, in general, a lot of experts say that, when your partner is wanting to be intimate after the birth of the baby, it isn't so much about the intimacy. It's more so that they are just wanting to connect. And it's more about that connection. Do you find generally this is the case?
Yeah, so generally, if we're talking about male-female couples, that men generally connect through having sex, and women need to connect to have sex. So that's probably why that would be, I would guess.
Yes.
And yeah, I would say so, because again, it's really interesting for men. I've spoken a lot to my husband about this, because again, the dynamic used to just be you two, and all your attention kind of was going towards them. And then you're introducing this other baby and they don't have the same connection as you do as a mother.
Yes.
And so a lot of the time they can feel like they're left out, or that, that there's some sort of disconnection happening there between the two of you. So, I was really conscious to give attention to my husband and the baby. And I was just able to do that, which you're not always able to do. I get that. So yeah, I can understand why that would be.
Yeah. And so the feelings, I guess, of rejection are really common between partners during this time period. How can couples overcome these feelings then? Is it just a case of having open conversations about what's really going on so they can maybe stop the cycle from continuing, possibly?
Yeah, totally. And to learn not to take anything personally, because it's not
right.
And if you have those conversations about it, you will discover that. Like, it's interesting if particularly at the moment, Flynn, who's 8 months old, really wants me at the moment and doesn't always want my husband. And when he's tired or hurt, he comes to me. And so my husband's like, oh, fine, you don't want me. Like, it's not about
which is
that.
common. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm with him every day. I've got the milk on me that he drinks, so of course he's going to be more connected to me. You'll have your time when he's going to be more connected to you. It doesn't mean he loves you any less, or that I love you any less. It's not,
it's a good point to make. There will be other times in life when, the child will be more connected with the father or the other parent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a really good thing to remind them. Definitely. Yeah. And I wanted to ask, how can parents best reconnect with their partner after birth, and just overall just redefine their intimacy? Like, what tips do you have to share with us for this?
Yeah. So again, I think about that communication, but I also think that to be able to find your footing again. So spend some time just reconnecting with the two of you, and whatever that looks like for you. So that could be about talking, it could be about having some fun, it could be about going on a date night, it could be about sitting together watching a movie, not talking, like
Yes.
whatever. Think about how you used to connect in the relationship. What did you do,
Yeah.
and how can you do that again? It doesn't have to, you don't always have to talk everything through. I'm a massive talker, and often women want to talk everything through, but men don't always want that. So, it's about figuring out what works for you in your relationship and how you feel you could connect. I know with us, whenever we go away on holidays, or we're away for the weekend, or we go out for the day, that's a way that we can spend some time connecting together, because we're away from the house where we've got those distractions of having to do the washing up or the washing, or
Yeah. And I guess if the timing isn't great for you, possibly to offer another alternative that you're comfortable with. But it's just, I guess, maybe being open overall with your feelings when you and your partner aren't exactly in the same place. And with that
yeah.
alternate solution, things like even just running a bath together, or having a nap and a snuggle, or like you said, watching TV, even just as simple as just holding hands as well, to be able to at least feel one
Totally.
another. And,
Oh yeah.
the connection doesn't always have to be intimate, I guess. Hey.
Totally. Yeah. Physical touch is so important, and it doesn't have to lead
Mm.
to sex every time. Like, that's so true. Those, I think that's another point I made in the article, but that's a way that you can pull towards someone, is to, if you give a hug on the way past, or a pat, or, you touch your partner's butt, or you give them a small peck on the cheek. Like, it doesn't, just
Mm.
those little parts, little small touches are ways that you can build that
I still
connection
see you.
with
Yeah.
you.
Absolutely. And
Mm.
getting back to you saying before, with parenting being exhausting, it is exhausting, and it's hard enough, I guess, to find enough energy for yourself, let alone the thought of having energy for intimacy. But I'd
Mm.
love to know, do you think it's important that parents find time to look after themselves, and to do something that gives them energy back, like their own personal interests and hobbies as well? So it's about having the energy, of course, for your baby, having the energy for your relationship, but you need equally to be able to keep your own cup full as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. But give it time, because I know that at this beginning, it's so difficult to think about anything else other than, how do I stay alive and keep this other person alive? So, like, I think, like, even getting to 8 months now, I feel like it's the only just now I've got to this stage where I'm like, what do I like doing again? And even this morning, while Flynn was asleep, I put on a face mask, and I, like, not a not
Oh,
a
yeah,
covered face mask,
yeah,
a
different
skin face
mask.
mask.
Well, they're
And sat
compulsory
on the
down here in
couch.
Victoria,
Yeah,
but
yeah, exactly. uh, and I sat down on the TV and watched a show I liked, and those simple things. I was like, oh my god, I love this. Like, I forgot how much I just love having a face mask on and relaxing, and yeah. So it just, yeah, take time, but yeah, definitely get back to you and what you like,
put the energy
and
back into you.
yeah, and it's so important also to know that your partner is the other parent, and they're not babysitting your child. They're looking after their own child. So I
Good
would
point.
say, as early as you can, give them opportunities to look after them, because you don't want to get years down the track where you go, oh my God, he doesn't even know. I hear parents all the time, and they're like, okay, so I've got you ready for the day. I've got your food out. I've got the bib out. And I just say to my husband, you're looking after Flynn for the day, and he can organize it, because he's the dad. He's got the skills. He's very capable, just as much as I am. The only thing he doesn't have is the breast milk. So he can do everything else apart from that.
And do you have any tips, I guess, for couples that they find that dynamic quite difficult, and or if the father and or the other parent isn't necessarily as open to equal partnering, parenting, I'm saying, sorry.
Yeah. Look, I think this is one of the conversations I kind of wished we'd had before we had Flynn. So I think it's
Aha.
really important to discuss this stuff before, to know. It's really, really interesting. Just like when you form a relationship, you both come with your different set of values, beliefs, how you were raised, how things get done. It's exactly the same with parenting, right?
Yep.
You come in from this world of where, or you were raised in this way, and your mother mothered in this way, and your father fathered in this way, and you think, like, it'd be good to have that conversation around what does parenting look like for each of you, so that you're aware. because otherwise you're just making assumptions about how being a mum should be, or how being a dad should be, rather than talking about it. So I think it's just important to be able to voice what it is that what expectations you have, and how you want to be as a mother, or how you want to be as a father, and then again come to some sort of compromise about it.
And when's a good time to have that conversation, do you think? Because I've heard
Before you have the child.
before you conceive the child, or before you?
Good question. I don't. Maybe once you've conceived, because then I don't. Yeah. Oh, look, any time is good to have the conversation, because I suppose if you've already had the child, then you need to have the conversation once you've had the child. But for us, it's just come up as we work through being parents. So it's not like we actually sat down and had a scheduled time of it to talk through it. It's like, as we're walking up to the cafe, let's talk about what your idea of being a dad is. And this is what my idea of a dad is, and how do they differ, and how do you make your own version of that? Because you don't need to duplicate what your parents have done. How do you make your own version of being parents, and what does it look like for you as a family?
Yeah, this is really important. And I've heard it, many experts say this over the last few years, that they wish that they had that conversation before they had the baby, and establishing, well, they're not rules per se, but just the lay of the land, I guess, just to make it fair, and overall, I guess, parts of parenthood can be really daunting, and challenging, but I guess humor can almost always lift the mood in any difficult situation. In your experience, have you sort of found that a sense of humor can sort of help at all? And is this something that possibly that you even mention to your clients at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very, very lucky because I have a very funny husband, and he makes me laugh every day. So yeah, you have to laugh. Like, if you don't laugh, sometimes you're going to cry. It's like, even when the baby's a little, because you're both going through this experience together, both trying to find your feet of how to be, and you're both trying to work out how to be parents, and you're both trying to work out how to be in a relationship as parents and having a kid. So play and fun is just so essential in any relationship. And yeah, it's massive. Even when I did my branding with this amazing designer, I was like, I don't want it to be serious all the time. Like, it's so important for relationships to have that element of play and fun. And we get to this stage sometimes as adults where we think that we need to be serious. And I know, because I got there. I absolutely got there when we were younger.
Yeah.
We were in a relationship for so long, and I thought that it was really important to be serious. When my husband would make a joke, I thought, it's not funny. We need to be serious all the time. And then I don't know what happened, but I was like, this is ridiculous, because I am fun, and I like having play and fun, and even dancing on the way to the fridge, or like, find little ways that you can bring fun into your life. Like, and you've got a kid, like, they make life fun, so it's such a nice way to help you become present and relax and enjoy yourself again, and learn to joke, because everything doesn't need to be taken so seriously.
And like you said earlier, life really does sort of flash by in the blink of an eye, and before you know it, your baby's 8 months old. So you want to enjoy the journey as much as possible, and every step along the way.
Absolutely.
In your experience, what are some of the healthiest ways that you've seen couples sort of navigate their journey through, I guess, this postpartum period, sort of post-birth?
Yeah, look, I think that play and fun is really important, and to not take the whole journey so seriously, and to my favorite saying is to, I don't know if it's an actual saying, but just to assume that the other person is always doing the best they can in any given moment. If you have that assumption about your partner, I hate assumptions, but that is the one assumption I will always carry, because I know that my husband is always doing the best he can given the resources he had. That best might look different from moment to moment to moment, but it's always his best. And just to constantly forgive each other, because you're both learning, you're both growing. This is a new process, and yeah, be kind, forgive each other, be kind, be present, enjoy it.
And can you tell us more about, I guess, scheduling time to communicate with your partner? This is something that, like anything, I guess, if we make time for things, it's going to happen, I guess. So can you maybe tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said before, it's about we take time as we're going along the day to chat about organizing stuff, but we forget to sit down and actually talk about how we're going. And so it's really important to schedule that time in, because again, like you said, you'll make time for it, but then you can have that conversation around, where are you emotionally? Like this week, how are you going? Like, how are you feeling? And then you can talk about stuff that's the chance to bring up, oh, when you did this, I felt like this, so it's your chance to bring up what's happened during the week, to be able to communicate how you're feeling. And because like when you first give birth, your emotions are all over the shop. So it's important that your partner understands that, where you're coming from, because then they'll know how to support you better. So there's a chance to sit down, communicate where you're at, what you're feeling, and then for your partner to be able to, you can communicate with your partner what you need. Yeah.
And what about the couples that I guess are really struggling? What are some of your tips if they're having some issues like trying to reconnect?
Yeah, I think that if they can have, again, that conversation about where they're at, and again, it's about spending some time alone. So I don't want us to think that it has to be this big deal. Like it can be 5 minutes alone, like it's just that at the end of the day, there is some time where your baby's asleep, or like even if you're sleeping alone and you're together, you're still like not sleeping alone, you're sleeping without the baby and you're together. At least you're spending some time together. So find that way that you can reconnect in some way. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be something that you schedule in. It's just that something that you're conscious of, and the time when you're just sitting there both on your phone. Like take that time to sit with each other and chat with each other, or just sit with, even if you're holding hands and you're both on your phone, like just find some way that you can reconnect together, and it doesn't have to be a big deal.
And I guess that a new arrival in some instances can change everything, but in most cases it really sort of just brings you back to, I guess, what really is important is that bond that you have with your partner. So is there anything else, I don't know, any other sort of closing tips and or sort of key messages that you would like to be able to share with the audience and everyone watching and listening, that I guess the key takeaways from the chat today?
Yeah, I think it's just so important to understand that every relationship goes through ups and downs. And again, that pressure from social media often gets put on you that everything needs to be perfect. I feel like more people are coming out now being more vulnerable, and which I love. But just know that it's so normal to go through highs and lows, and that you can make it back from that low. It's just about, if you try and do it yourselves, you should spend some time yourselves. Just if you can't do it by yourself, go get some professional support. And that's okay to get professional support. Just like if you've got a sore shoulder, you go to the physio or to the
Absolutely.
chiro, like it really should be normalized to go see a therapist, go see a coach, see someone that can support you through that journey to get back on track. Because it kills me when I see couples that break up that haven't put that work in and could have gotten through it. Because my motto always is, when working with couples, even if you're going to break up, let's get you to a 10 out of 10 before you do that, particularly with kids, because you're still going to co-parent at the end of the day. So how can we get that relationship to be the best it can be, even if you're not going to be together?
Yes. And, the beauty of the relationship and relationships are the opportunity to be able to mirror each other, and for you to both learn and grow as well. And for you to be able to sort of work together. And this is a new opportunity for growth and development. It's just a matter of then looking at one another and having that conversation, knowing why in the first place that you wanted to create another human being.
Absolutely.
Beck, this has been a really lovely chat today. If anyone's got any other questions for you, whereabouts can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm all over socials, talking about social media. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I've only just got myself onto the world of LinkedIn. But find me on either of them. So I'm Beck Thompson, and the Relationship Circle. So yeah, I think you're going to put the links in so people can find me there. And please feel free to message me or contact me however you want. Happy to chat to anyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Beck. Take care, and really look forward to having a chat again in the not too distant future. Stay safe.
Amazing.
See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.